Imagine waking up to see a photo of a sitting judge, handcuffed, surrounded by agents, dragged out of her own courtroom, suddenly circulating across the entire country. No press conference, no official release, just a single image blasted out by the director of the FBI himself. That one moment sent shockwaves through Washington, and within hours, the question wasn't just about the arrest. It was about judgment, power, and whether the man leading the nation's top law enforcement agency had just crossed a line America never expects its institutions to cross. And in the middle of this firestorm, Senator Chris Van Hollen stepped forward with a message that hit even harder.
As where Justice Scalia wrote, and I quote, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings," end of quote. You don't
I don't dispute that.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, for the record, we understand that because, as you well know, the federal courts have found that there have been gross violations to date of many individuals' due process rights. Let me ask you a question about Judge Dugan, and I'm not going to get into about Judge Dugan, who was arrested, taken out in handcuffs from her courtroom. You agree that as director of the FBI, you should lead by example, right?
Try to.
Okay. Well, there's a confidentiality and media contacts policy within the Department of Justice guidelines that says specifically that DOJ personnel should not voluntarily disclose a photograph of a defendant unless it serves a law enforcement function or unless the photograph is already part of the public record in the case. Clearly, Judge Dugan's photograph was not already part of the public record in the case. So it appears that what you did was a violation of that policy, unless you can express a clear law enforcement purpose for having done that.
The simple law enforcement purpose is to show America that we investigate any individual who commits a crime, especially those in positions of public trust.
But do you agree with the presumption of innocence in the U.S. system?
Absolutely. As a public defender, that's what I fought for years.
Well,
but that's different than this.
But Mr. Director, this is one of the reasons why that guideline is there, so people, especially the director of the FBI, doesn't announce to the country that somebody's already been found criminally liable when they haven't. She hasn't, has she?
But that's not what we said, that she was criminally liable. We said she was arrested and showed it.
Yeah, we know she was arrested, but the issue is the photograph. I'm asking you, going forward, I hope as the leader of the FBI, you will comply with the guidelines of the FBI that everybody else is expected to follow.
I believe I have, and I will going forward.
Well, this seems like a direct violation of this guideline.
I guess we're in disagreement, Senator.
Well, unless you can tell me why that really serves a law enforcement function. So you're going to send out pictures of everybody that's arrested?
Lots of people that are arrested have pictures sent out.
I'm asking you as director of the FBI, is that going to be your policy, just to start saying?
No, we do it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. Well, the guidelines make clear that I think any normal interpretation of this suggests it's a violation. Look, we want to, we're a budget committee, an appropriations committee. We want to find a way to make sure that we properly resource the men and women who work at the FBI. I think that is a common goal, I hope. And I do just, Mr. Chairman, again, in closing, I understand you want to proceed, just so that we keep things going, but it is kind of hard to proceed without any budget. So.
I don't take you as critiquing our having a hearing.
No,
you're pleased to have a hearing, and I wish we had more to deal with than we do.
I do.
And
If the rules don't apply to the people enforcing them, then what's left to trust? From the moment Van Hollen leaned in during the hearing, the temperature in the room shifted. He wasn't just asking about a tweet. He was challenging Kash Patel on something far deeper, the responsibility of leadership. And Patel, trying to keep calm under the spotlight, probably knew this wasn't going to be a routine exchange. Because nothing about Judge Dugan's arrest had been routine from the start, it began with a legal reminder. One almost everyone in the room already knew but rarely heard spoken so bluntly. Van Hollen read aloud a Supreme Court statement by Justice Scalia, a line declaring that even non-citizens, even individuals facing deportation, are entitled to due process under the Fifth Amendment. It wasn't random. It was strategic. Van Hollen was laying the foundation for everything that came next. He wanted to make something absolutely clear. America has rules for how justice must be carried out. And nobody, not even the director of the FBI, gets to operate above them. That's when he cut straight to the heart of the controversy. Judge Dugan, arrested, handcuffed, escorted away. But the spark wasn't the arrest itself. It was the photograph Patel tweeted. A photo that, according to Department of Justice guidelines, should never have been released without a specific, legitimate law enforcement purpose. And Van Hollen wanted answers. Why did Patel post it? What purpose did it serve? And did the country's top law enforcement official just undermine the presumption of innocence that every American, not just powerful judges, are supposed to be guaranteed? Patel tried to defend the decision. He said the photo sent a message that even people in positions of authority could be held accountable. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. It sounds strong. But Van Hollen wasn't buying it. Because the guidelines exist for a reason. They're meant to stop officials from publicly framing someone as guilty before a court even hears their case. And a mugshot-style photo posted by the FBI director himself doesn't just inform the public. It shapes perception. It burns an image into the national conversation before the facts ever reach a courtroom. And here's where things get even more complicated. Judge Dugan's case wasn't public when the photo was posted. Her image wasn't part of the record. So when Patel shared it, he wasn't echoing existing information. He was creating it. And according to the guidelines, that is exactly what DOJ personnel are instructed not to do unless it serves a clear investigative function. Van Hollen kept repeating that point. Where was the law enforcement purpose? What justified the release? And if there wasn't one, then what exactly was Patel trying to accomplish? Rumors online suggest that some officials inside the Department of Justice were shocked by the move, worried it might set a dangerous precedent. Reports claim that several legal analysts privately questioned whether Patel was making a public example out of Dugan, hoping to project toughness at a time when political pressure was already building around transparency, accountability, and judicial independence. Nothing about these whispers is confirmed, but they added gasoline to a fire that was already spreading. Throughout the hearing, Patel insisted he respected the presumption of innocence, claiming that he fought for those rights when he worked as a public defender. But Van Hollen wasn't interested in background stories. He pointed to the policy. He pointed to the guidelines. He pointed to the fact that no one else in Patel's position had ever taken such a step without clear justification. And then he said it plainly. This seems like a direct violation. That line landed like a punch. Because for a federal agency built on procedure and strict standards, being called out publicly for breaking your own rules is not something that disappears quietly. Then came the moment Patel struggled to explain. Van Hollen asked if Patel planned to release photos of every person the FBI arrests. Patel said no, just on a case-by-case basis. And with that answer, the senator pounced. Case-by-case is exactly what the guidelines warn against. When you choose whose image to release and whose to withhold, you create the appearance of selective enforcement. You leave room for favoritism, political influence, or personal bias, whether intentional or not. And selective transparency is one of the fastest ways to erode trust in law enforcement. That's when the hearing took on an even bigger meaning. This wasn't just about Judge Dugan. It wasn't about a single photo. And it definitely wasn't about social media. It was about the possibility of a politicized FBI, an agency that wields enormous power to arrest, investigate, and influence public opinion. When the rules become flexible, when discretion becomes inconsistency, the entire system begins to tilt. Not because of one decision, but because of what that decision signals to everyone watching. There's been buzz online that Patel's tweet may have been a way to demonstrate authority early in his tenure, a way to show he wasn't afraid to act decisively, even controversially. Some commentators suggest it was meant to send a message to officials across the country that misconduct won't be ignored, no matter someone's rank or title. Others suggest it may have been part of a broader push to appear tough on corruption. But again, these theories are speculation, not confirmed fact. What is confirmed is that the senator saw the action as reckless, inconsistent with DOJ protocol, and potentially damaging to the credibility of the Bureau. As Van Hollen reminded the committee, the role of oversight isn't symbolic. Congress exists to keep federal agencies accountable, to ensure the rules that protect Americans don't get bent in the name of public relations, politics, or personal ambition. And Patel, whether he expected it or not, found himself forced to defend a decision that many legal experts believe should never have been made. Because here's the truth. The presumption of innocence isn't just a phrase. It's the foundation of the justice system. When law enforcement leaders create public judgment before a trial even begins, they don't just harm the accused. They harm the system itself. The public begins to doubt fairness. They begin to doubt neutrality. They begin to ask whether justice is being served or whether someone's agenda is shaping what they see. And when that doubt takes hold, it spreads. This is why the Judge Dugan incident became such a lightning rod. It wasn't about sympathy for a judge. It wasn't about defending someone under investigation. It was about the standard the FBI sets for the country. A standard meant to be consistent, unbiased, and carefully controlled. A standard that many believe Patel ignored in a moment where he should have demonstrated restraint. The consequences of that moment reach far deeper than one photograph. They ripple through every case the FBI handles, every investigation, every prosecution, every interaction between law enforcement and the public. Because when people begin to question whether the rules are followed, they begin to question whether the results can be trusted at all. And trust, once lost, is nearly impossible to rebuild. Some reports claim that internal DOJ officials are now quietly discussing whether additional guidance or restrictions are needed on media communication. Others say Congress may consider tightening the rules if agencies continue to push the boundaries. None of this is confirmed, but the fact that these conversations are even rumored shows how quickly one decision can reshape an entire institution's direction. By the end of the hearing, Van Hollen's message was unmistakable. Accountability isn't optional. It isn't something leaders get to apply only when it's convenient. It's the backbone of justice. And when powerful officials show carelessness with the rules, it sends a signal that the system is flexible depending on who's involved, who's watching, or what someone wants the public to think. That's why this confrontation matters far more than a moment on camera. It's a reminder that fairness in law enforcement depends on consistency. That transparency must be balanced with constitutional rights. And that when oversight is ignored or dismissed, the consequences extend far beyond politics or headlines. They reach into the very fabric of trust that allows the justice system to function at all. So, if you want to understand why this hearing resonated so deeply, look beyond the surface. Look at what it represents. One image, one tweet, one decision, forcing the entire country to ask a difficult question. Who holds the watchdog accountable when the watchdog crosses the line? And as this story continues to unfold, it's something every American should watch closely. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below. What do you think? Did Patel cross the line, or was he making a statement about accountability? And share this video with others who want to understand the deeper stakes behind today's biggest justice system controversies.